Hello, friends. Welcome to the Tell It Like It Is podcast. I'm your host, Alexi Bailey, and we are at episode 68. Can't believe it. And I have a very special guest here today, Lloyd.
Hi, how you doing?
How you doing, Lloyd? I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. Thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Tell me a little bit about your background, Lloyd.
I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so Amish country. I don't know any Amish people personally, but Lancaster is known for Amish. Lived in Philly for about almost 10 years, and that's where I met my wife. My wife's from the Bronx, so she was going to Temple. So I didn't go to Temple, but we met in Philly because I used to be a DJ back in the day. So I met at a party I was DJing at, and we started dating. That moved me into New York. So I lived in New York for 13 years. With her, we got married in 2014. Our first son, he was born last year in August. So we have an 8-month-old right now. We're currently living in Newark, New Jersey. And I've been working in the restaurant business for 24 years now, since 1998. All aspects of it, but I do prefer being in the kitchen. And then how we've met is online through running. Your running crew was the first crew that I actually joined on Facebook, the running group on Facebook. So that was back in 2015, I believe. Yeah. So because I wasn't really a runner prior to that. I ran cross country in high school for a couple years, but I just did it because my friends did. Then I started running again, for health and for it's like a hobby, as to for some enjoyment in 2015, and I've been hooked on it ever since. So so that's like a brief little synopsis.
I feel like you touched on a lot of things.
Yeah, I kind of went off a little bit, but
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Perfect synopsis. So much. I was reflecting before we got on, and I want to give a clear expectation of what the podcast is about when I invite people to come on. And I sometimes I feel like I do a good job, or sometimes I'm like I could have done a better job. But I'm very open with who I invite on the podcast, because let's say the show was about volleyball. I would want to talk to someone who's into volleyball, right? But the show is really about an individual's experience. And obviously, everyone has different experiences. And I think for me, I don't want to just talk to one type of person. I'm hoping that I can get a broad spectrum of different type of people, so that we can kind of have a cross section of what's really happening, right? So the goal is really just to have conversations that really reflect what reality is, So I've had some people who were very open-minded and just oh yeah, I talk like that all the time, And sometimes I have people who's not so much. So it's been an interesting journey so far.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Where would you say you fall in all of that?
I'm not. It's a good question. I have I'm an open conversationalist. We can have a nice conversation and get down into wherever the conversation takes us. But I guess out of the types of people that you've interviewed, maybe I'm kind of in the middle ground. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm open I'm open to open up, you know.
Gotcha. Gotcha. DJing sounds fun. What kind of DJing did you do?
So I got into DJing. I started out playing hip hop, but then I started because I this is when I was living in Philly, so it was like late '90s. Um, so records. We didn't have this Serato digital stuff yet, which is great, but like, I'm being an old head right now. But um, so but then I lived in West Philly, and I had this crew of people I hung out with. We started going. They started taking me to this Jamaican after hours spots all around West Philly. The first place I went to was called the Basement. It was literally a basement of a house. They just stayed open till whenever. On Friday night, Saturday night, and they played like reggae dancehall, and that really like got me into it. So I started playing. I started really playing reggae and dancehall. I started getting into it. It was like uh, a brand new genre for me. Like I didn't really know anything deeper than like Bob Marley or whoever would have been like maybe like Shaggy or Shabba Ranks or something like that, like artists that hit the mainstream a little
Yeah,
bit here and there.
crossover.
But like but I mean, going back a little bit further than that, when I was still in high school, a coworker of mine, my first job was at a grocery store. A coworker of mine, he had a cousin from Barbados that was in Lancaster. So we would all hang out, go shoot pool, and then he would be driving. He'd be playing like tons of like dance hall stuff. I was just like, oh, this stuff is nice, man. It's cool. So I started playing dance hall then. But then I kind of opened my whole musical spectrum to other genres, house, dance classics, old school, like R&B, 80s stuff, 70s stuff, just digging into everything. But my wife, she's West Indian. She's so the attention was I was playing a party and I was playing dancehall. I was playing a new dancehall that's come out at the time, and I saw her dancing. Now, every time I tell this story, it sounds smoother than it actually was. But like I went over to talk to her. We kind of hit it off and ended up started dating from that. But yeah, like for DJing, like I really I like to specialize in like reggae, dancehall. Um, me and a guy I used to DJ with, we did a soca mix series. It was called Home for Carnival. We did maybe like four or five versions of it. See, it feels like it's so long ago now. I couldn't even tell you how many mixtapes we did with that. But
What was your DJ name?
my DJ name was Double L. That's just a nickname that when one of my jobs, well, I kept it for a while. I worked at a bar. One of my coworkers, he just called me Double L. That's just that was my nickname. So I took it and I've made it my DJ name. It was simple. It's like, why is Double L? Because Lloyd has two L's in it. That's all, basically.
Right. When did you start DJing?
I stopped DJing. I would say 2012 would have been my last job. Like I moved to New York in '07, and coming to New York from Philly, I didn't have like a base of people. I knew some people up here, but it was hard to get parties because in Philly, I had a lot of weekly residencies and one-off parties at big clubs where there was this club called Transit in Philly. It was on Spring Garden Street and Spring Garden and 6th Street. And it was like multi-room floor. My boys would put on parties there. I would get the reggae room down in the basement. That was fun. You go downstairs if you want to hear reggae dancehall, you go up to the main floor to hear like hip hop, and then you go upstairs. Maybe they got like somebody playing house, so it's like we do those big parties like once in a while. And then I had my residencies throughout the week. But then moving to New York, it was hard. I DJ'd once in a while here and there. And then basically I kind of went to private events like weddings. Like weddings are fun. They're fun to DJ. I do it for friends, friends of friends. So we had a blast, doing that. And then I think 2012 was probably the last wedding that I DJ'd.
So do you want to DJ? Do you still want to DJ, or you're done?
It, sometimes I do. Sometimes I just kind of want to, like, back in the day when I first started DJing, it would just be like I'd be hanging out at home. Friends would come over, we'd just play records, go back and forth, just kind of just hang out, have fun, get a vibe going. That was great. And then like the best parties that I've ever DJ'd, they're still ingrained in my mind. It's like this is like 2005, 2002, 2003. Like it's like those parties that was just like everything just went perfect and the room was crowded and everybody was having a great time and the vibe was excellent. Those parties they're like I will remember them for the rest of my life. And I'll be able to tell stories about them. I'll be able to tell you specific records that when I played, the place went nuts. Like that, those parties were, they're amazing. That's an amazing DJ feeling, I think now why I'm not really DJing is just it's hard work, man. It's like night, like you got to be a night owl for that. Like I was a night owl back in the day. I think I just kind of in my 20s, I was a night owl. I'm in my 40s now. I'm like a morning person. I'd rather be waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. than going to sleep at 4 or 5 a.m.
You still have your equipment?
I have some of it, yeah, because like I still have like one turntable that I have. I remember I bought it in 2000. So I've had it for 22 years. It still works. I do need to get like a new needle for it,
yeah,
but it still works fine. It plays records. I have 2 CDJs because at a certain point in my DJ career, I had to transition into digital because it got to a point where it's just like music keeps coming out so fast, and it's like it's not pressed on vinyl. Like what am I gonna do? I gotta like buy it online, download it, burn it onto CDs, and then I did play with Serato for a little bit, so that was fun. But when you start using so much technology, then there's glitches, and when you're at an event you're getting paid for, and then you can't play because your computer's messed up or whatever. It's messy, man.
You would probably use the CDs right now.
Well, yeah, I have. Well, I do. If I were to play again, I would burn some control CDs for Serato. So I would just use my CDJs and just connect my laptop into there, and just have all the music on like an external hard drive. I mean, like some DJs now, they probably don't even bring that. They probably just like, oh, I got everything on my computer. People are like, I just bring my USB stick. I was like, okay, did you play the whole night with that? Like, yeah. I was like, okay, fine, cool, that's cool, man. I've been out of the game for a while, but yeah, if I were to play again, I'd probably just stick to the CDJs. Use Serato.
Did you give away your records?
No. I still have them. Like, so that's like my thing. Is like I have shelves of records, closets in our apartment, or we have boxes of records in them. I know I have multiple copies of the same records, so I'm gonna go. I still have to make time to go through them and
keep them, man. Keep them.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I'll definitely keep them, but I feel like those records that maybe if I have like 3 copies of the same record, I might take one and sell it. Just to kind of.
The effort to sell it is not worth the loss.
True.
records are like timeless, you know. I'm sure your son will appreciate that third copy.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, definitely. That's something I want to, when he gets, when he gets older and we can sit and talk about stuff, and I can show him records and show him how they work and all that stuff. I'm excited about that. I mean, I follow a couple of Instagram accounts with dads with huge record collections, and they see them and their child, like their son or daughter or whatever, and then they're holding up like records, they're like old school records, like, and I'm just like, okay, cool, that's what's up. You know about that record, and then you're playing it, you gave it a thumbs up or you gave it a thumbs down. You have your own opinion about it. Definitely looking forward to that.
Listen, like, it's interesting because me and music, we got to a point where it was like it could have got super serious, or I just stayed at that level where it was almost like super serious. I'm Jamaican, so
Okay.
a lot of Jamaican records I just always knew it was like it's just in my blood. And I think hip hop I came into, and I really tried to like just get immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first DJ that comes to mind is Funk Master Flex.
Right.
Not because he's the best, but just because it was just interesting to see the spectrum. I didn't go to a lot of parties, so I can't say I know party DJs really well. But I know that that conversion to digital was monumental for music. And the impact of it, I don't know if we really even know.
True, it's still evolving, like that medium. It's crazy because people can put out records, like they can put out one a day, like it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember when like Funkmaster Flex, he was saying how the crappy DJs were using Serato, like I'm still records. And I remember that transition. Like, I think, what year was that? Around what time was that, you would say?
That, I mean, I think they started maybe around, it's probably like 2005, like that second half of that decade.
Yeah.
That's when people started transitioning. And then
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing was, when he was on record, I couldn't hear the difference between the digital. So I think like in general, I don't really have an opinion on like what's really better or not, but I know that records get expensive.
Yeah, and heavy too.
Exactly.
Very heavy.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're not gonna bring 100,000 songs to the party, and you may leave that record home that day that you get a request for, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the I mean, looking back on it, I guess it's a dice roll that, you better hope that you pack what you need. I mean, like back in Philly, I had, like, my dad gave me this hoopty, this 85 like K car, like it was a Plymouth something. I don't remember what like the model like was, but he took good care of it, and so I drove it until I killed the car. But I used to pack that trunk with just like boxes of records, and I mean dance hall, it comes 7 inches, so I'd have like the long travel cases, like 3 of them, and then I'd bring like 4 boxes of 12 inches, and it's like, but see, then on the good side of that, that's kind of the beauty of it, because you're flipping and you have visual cues, and what record it is because you can see the artwork on the edge, and then like you pull it out, that's it, boom, okay. Like when you do it with digital, you have to kind of make lists, and you do the same thing, but it's less, you're doing less touching with it, so you less senses, you just got to use visuals and understand like where the songs are. But yeah, I mean, but hey, you can,
it sounds like you spent majority of your time on the like, you started off in hip hop, you said, but you did a lot of dancehall reggae stuff.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was, I used to shop I used to shop. There's some reggae shops in West Philly. There was a store called Enforcer Records. That was down like near the end of West Philly, like 63rd Street on Market Street. You know, I would drop in there probably like twice a month maybe, just to see what was new, because then, you know, I would used to listen to well, I would go to there was a reggae party every Sunday night at this old club called Philo's in it was off South Street in like Center City, Philadelphia. And then Federation Sound, they used to DJ that party. DJ Kenny Mees, I used to go over there like every week, and you know, I used to hear all the new stuff. And I would always be going like, what was that? What's the name of that track? What's the name of that track? You know, and I go down to Enforcer. Sometimes they'd have it, sometimes they wouldn't. You know, when everybody started transitioning to digital, then it's just like, you might as well not even bother going to the record store anymore. You gotta Google search it and you know, go to like, you know, LimeWire or something like that to try to find stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and then also Armand's is I did do a stint working at a record store in Philly for a few years. Armand's used to be the biggest record store like in the Philadelphia area, but you know, we would get DJs coming down from New York, coming up from Baltimore, DC, Japan, everywhere. They would just be coming there just to get some stuff. I mean, Armand's was in business for a while. They always had some exclusives.
Where did the store get the records from?
Oh, they like all the distributors, like Universal, from Def Jam, from you know, reggae says like VP Records. Like, you know, I had a relationship with our reggae rep from VP Records. I'd call him in the office over in Queens, like a lot, like every week. I'd be like, you guys have this? Did this come out yet? Or, you know, like, you know, what do you got? Like, you guys know anything that else is coming out? Da, da, da. Can I, you know, I mean, I like to order like maybe 5 copies of it and see what's up. But yeah, like so they had it. I mean, because they were in that business for so long, like they had it. Like you could just order anything from anybody, and they would send it because they knew about Armand's.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That was a huge record store. Yeah.
What's your cultural background?
Me, I'm half Filipino and I'm half white. My mom is from the Philippines, so my Filipino side is first generation Filipino American. My dad, he's just a white guy from Georgia, you know. So I guess like his background is like Irish, but that's like generations ago,
right?
You know, so yeah. So he's from Georgia. My dad's from Georgia.
So which box do you check?
I lean towards Filipino. I'll check them both though. I think like Filipino, white, you know. But I do like Filipino is the first one that I check.
I know, but when you're doing those forms, there's no Filipino. Yeah. What do you check?
Oh, well then like sometimes, you know, whatever, if there's like a 2 or more box, sometimes there's a 2 or more box. Sometimes there's mixed race box. Or other times if I'm just like, I just bypass it, you know. It might be like an optional thing or
how has that affected how you see race in America?
Well, I mean, you can dig deep into the history. The history of America is, I mean, just from what I know is it's based on that. Like that's what made money for America, unfortunately, you know, is like how people were treated. And you know, slavery, it's insane, like just how much backbone, like financial backbone that had in this country, and how it continues, like how everything just kind of continues but in kind of in a different way, but in the same way today, you know. it's like, it's just like the news, like for instance, when I was growing up, my parents watched the news every day. That's a habit that I took with me into adult life. So, I would watch New York One every day, or like, because we lived in the Bronx before, the News 12, the Bronx every day. Da, da, da. But in 2016, when we got that new president back then, I couldn't do it, man. It was like every day was just like it's just too much like information. Like,
Wait, for the record, who was the president in 2016?
that the reality TV guy, Trump, that dude. Yeah.
Let
People
me ask you
can.
this. Let me ask you this.
Yeah, yeah.
Before he ran for president, what did you think about Trump?
I didn't really. I was just kind of like,
Did
what?
you ever watch the reality show?
I maybe like here or there, but I didn't really sit there and watch. What
Yeah.
is it? The Apprentice. That's what it was. Yeah, I didn't really sit there and watch it like that. But if I was flipping through channels and it
Sure.
would be on, then I'd check it out for a second, then it'd be on to the next one.
I knew Trump, like, Trump was mentioned, like, obviously I'm not American, right? When I came here, I moved to New York in 1996,
Okay.
right? So I didn't know anything about Trump, and I really wasn't big into news. But when I really started hearing Trump's name was like rappers mentioned Trump as like a rich guy,
Yeah.
being rich like Trump. And, I'd see him occasionally in the news, Trump owns this, Trump owns that. So he was just another rich guy.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then The Apprentice came along and it was like, okay, a rich guy with a show encouraging people to make money. So that kind of made sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when you have like that, when it said that basic there was basis of that show, it's like, okay, rich dude telling people to go make money. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Do you know much about the Philippines?
I was there once. That was back in the 80s. I was 8 years old when I went. My mom took me back there. We were there for a month. So I got to experience it. But since then, growing up, I haven't been back. And like I know some things about it, like the history, like some history things about it. But I haven't. I would love to go back
Yeah.
just to kind of experience it as an adult, be able to talk to my family, because like that's where most of my mom's family, my mom, that's where most of the mom's side of my family is in the Philippines. I have some family in Hawaii. They
Okay.
they settled, they moved to Hawaii, but other than that, I feel like everyone else is in the Philippines, and then a few people like spread out more around the world, but yeah.
Something interesting to me that I've like learned and continue to learn about is the experience of otherness and like because America focuses so much on race and putting people in a box. When you have someone who's mixed race, they really suffer a lot because they can't fully identify with one race or the other. So they kind of get torn being in between. So they can't, like in your situation, you can't claim white and be with the white people, and you can't claim Filipino and be with the Filipinos. So you're kind of in this, you know, you sound like you hung out with the black kids and that was your crew. And
Yeah, yeah.
and typically I think that's where most mixed people find refuge. But for those who grow up in like middle class where there's not a lot of black people around, they really suffer. And it's interesting to read some of those narratives. Like people who are like gorgeous, like mixed is like gorgeous. They were being teased, for not being white and then not be so it's this kind of interesting American thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, me growing up, I didn't really. I can't say that I really experienced um, much kind of like discrimination, kind of. Um, I don't know. Like I can kind of like. I, my wife calls me a chameleon, where I can kind of like whatever crew I'm in, I can kind of wherever like group of people that I'm around, I can
Yeah.
kind of blend in. With that, it's just kind of like I'm just like some dude there. You know. Um.
But
Like
I think we
I'm
lend
sorry.
ourselves to that because we do kind of have that chameleon type personalities who just kind of like jump in and just start eating the food and just get alongs with everyone. Like,
Right.
that's the way we should be, of course.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, as long as you're not in a place where people are like really hardcore racist or hardcore boxing you, everyone should be fine.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where if you came up in the wrong place, it can really be terrible.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I can say that I was fortunate enough to not have to
Yeah.
like
But
really like
but
feel that.
the other interesting thing with that too is like where the poor black people are, they'll accept anyone. So if you're fortunate enough to be poor and be where the black people are, you're good. But if you're like, well-to-do middle class, then you might have to suffer a bit.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. But it also, I feel like what plays into that is your mindset, like each individual's mindset and how they deal with situations. So people can
Are
pick
you,
out
are you only
things.
child?
I am an only child. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. No siblings. So it's kind of crazy. But it's what made me who I am today. So
So you mentioned working in the restaurant business. Did you go to culinary school?
I didn't actually, but uh, when I was a kid, I didn't really cook much as a kid. It was kind of like my mom was just like, stay out of the kitchen. So, but I did used to watch. There's a show on PBS when I was growing up called Great Chefs of. They'd go to like it was like Great Chefs of New Orleans or Great Chefs of Chicago or whatever, and then they would go into these restaurants and the chefs would be cooking dishes and stuff like that. So that really interested me. Um, when I when I moved to Philly, I moved to Philly in '98, and that was like I moved there in January. It was really hard for me to find a job. Um, I mean, part of it is just because me being like a naive like 19-year-old, like just whatever. But I had friends that worked in a burrito shop downtown, and there was like, you want to work here? I was like, yeah, I do. I need a job. So they brought me in, and that was my first restaurant job. Um, and it I liked working there. And then since then, I would just go to other places and work in kitchens. That bar that I mentioned where I got my nickname Double L, that was my second job. I walked into there and I was doing like I was a short order line cook there. So I was cooking for the bar. And then I stayed there for a long time. I started working there in '99. I didn't leave there till 2012. But I was bartending then. Like, so that was where I got my bartending experience, bar back experience. Um I've worked in the front of the house too, as a server and a bartender, and then also cooking in the back. Um but yeah. So
How do you feel about like restaurants and food and handling like the way restaurants do what they do?
I mean, it's a tough business, man. It's no matter what, right? your staff, you and your staff are going to be like beat up at the end of the day. You know, it's hard work. You know, when you're in a busy place, but you know, it's rewarding too. Like you feel like, especially when you have a good team with you and you all work together to get through that rush, and you know, you're successful. It feels great. But yeah, and yeah, and then also it gets a little tougher because everywhere is an open kitchen now, which is so it's like there's elements of front of the house, you know, work with when you're working in the kitchen now too. Um, you know, I've worked at places where I'm cooking and there's customers sitting at the counter and they're just watching what I'm doing. And they're trying to talk to me, and I'm, you know, it's the middle of the dinner rush, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't have this conversation with you right now, man. I'm like, I'm getting killed right now. Like, so I just turn around, just keep doing what I'm doing, and you know. But yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot working in the restaurant industry, and you know, I'm grateful for that. But yeah.
So you make Caribbean food now?
I have, but I because previously I was working at a Japanese place. Most recently, I worked there for 10 years. But I was making specials there. I did make an oxtail dish there. That was like I called it. My wife's name's Samantha. I called it Samantha's oxtail. So it was like a Jamaican oxtail stew, but I Japanesed it up a little bit, like with the adding things like miso, and I took the plantains and I made a puree, and with butter beans too.
Okay.
And then you know, I smear it on the plate and lay the oxtail down with the thick oxtail gravy on top, and then some fried yellow plantains, and then also like micro cilantro. That's like a highlight dish that special that I made. People like it feels good when it's just like when you're DJing a party and everybody's having a good time. When you make a dish at a restaurant and a customer tells you that this is really good, that's another highlight, another career highlight. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I mean, so I've done that. I've done Filipino stuff there too. At you know, it was we have the buns. They had the Taiwanese buns, like you know, they do pork buns and chicken buns and stuff like that. But I made like a chicken adobo bun. Like, so Filipino food, like, you know, chicken adobo, pork adobo, that's like a staple. You know, it's you know, I don't know if you know Filipino adobo or anything like that, but it's like chicken with like it's cooked with like vinegar and soy sauce, and I basically made like a shredded chicken adobo, put on a bun with some pickled chilies, and came out really well. Like people were liking it. And then then I also took them back to Philly. I made some cheesesteak buns. You know, I called it the Philly Special. It was the same year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Go
Okay.
Eagles!
Yeah.
so you know, I've had fun. I've had fun, like, you know, being given an opportunity to be creative and make something for you know, for people, for like that. You know, so I'm fortunate for that.
Yeah, man. And how's married life treating you?
Married life is good. You know, it's like there's ups and downs. You know, so but you know, it's what you sign up for. You know, that's how I would see it. I mean, I love it. I love my wife. We've been dating. We were together since 2005. We got married in 2014. So you know, she's my best friend. She's like the love of my life. So you know, she's the mother of my child. You know, so it's like all encompassing. Just like a lot of love going around for a long time. So
What island?
oh, she's half Jamaican, half Guyanese, actually.
Okay. American born.
Yes, born. She's first generation.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things why I got inspired to do a podcast is because I see life as being relatively simple and straightforward, but there's so many strong messages out there that kind of cloud the simple reality, right?
Mm.
Like we're supposed to eat healthy food from the earth and stay healthy, but somehow we get so wrapped up and busy that we're eating junk all the time, to the point where we're extremely unhealthy, to the point of where we're almost like dying, and like we need a surgery, and like just eat healthy, you
Right.
know? So
Yeah.
I'm simplifying that with that one example, but I find that that's a common theme now where we are now in 2022. It's like
Mm.
things are getting so simple, things are getting so complicated that it's like we need help.
Agreed. Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm more like, I think what I like is talking to regular people who's got it figured out. I'm like, see,
Mm.
it's simple, and some people need a lot of professional help to kind of manage their life.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, it's tough. The times that we're in now, it's tough because from the way I see it, and also from my experience too, is it's we have to work so much to make ends meet. We have to because we have to pay for every where we
Bill,
live, where we eat, etc. That there's a lot of times we're too tired to cook a meal at home. So our phones have made everything so convenient now. So we Uber Eats or Grubhub or something, or we'll go outside to a Wendy's or a McDonald's or something. We'll pick that first, as opposed to trying to figure out something simple to cook at home that is a million times more better for you and your family. But yeah, I mean, it's tough because I mean, I fall into that. I fall into that a lot myself. Sometimes it's like I come home from work and I'm just like, I feel beat up, and I'm just like, I can't cook anything tonight. Like, we gotta order something, man. Like, so just going through and try to make the best choices possible. But sometimes it's just like convenience. It's like, oh, this Wendy's is a 20-minute delivery. All right, let's do that. Let's just do that.
but I mean, it even applies to our relationships, like you
Mm,
said, we're so busy, we just lose touch. And some people are the product of, they grew up missing something, so now they're adults who can't function in relationships, and they also need professional help to manage their relationships. Like,
yeah.
we're getting to a point where we need like a whole team, to manage our lives. And I'm a big proponent of like making getting back to the way things are supposed to be, the organic way of living,
Mhm.
and that's,
Yeah.
there's an organic way to have relationships. There's an organic way to live in community. All of these things, if you're not careful and you get too busy, you're just gonna grow unhealthy.
Yep. That, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And you have to do what you have to do. But you know, I don't know. Like for me, I'm try to take a step back and look at the big picture and see if there's any adjustments that I can make to make things better, where I can get more time with my family, get more time, in the community, or be able to, do some things like get back to volunteering. Things like that. It can't be all about all about the money, even though, you know, realistically it has to be mostly about it, you know, depending on where you're at. But you got to take back time to give back. I feel that'll make you feel it's worthwhile. It makes you feel better that you're actually kind of helping out around the community. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's tough.
Did you grow up in a church or a faith-based community?
I grew up Catholic. Filipinos are very like Catholic, you know. So I wouldn't say I'm a practicing Catholic now in adulthood, but you know, I understand the higher being, or the higher someone that we answer to, or something that I guess is like I would call it the universe. You know, I was like, well, the universe is laying this out for me right now. You know, like certain situations in life. You know, but yeah, yeah, I'm not a practicing Catholic right now.
Okay. So let's take that break now, and we'll come back for part two, and we'll pick it up right there.
Okay, so cool.